Hi to everyone. My name's Tex. This is a quick webinar video just to showcase 3 of our tools being used in unison. So we've got our Threads tool, which is our engineering collaboration software. We have Flows, which is our order management system for additive manufacturing. And most recently, we've just integrated with Autodesk and Fusion 360. So it's going to be using Flows to place an order, then moving the conversation over to Threads to have some discourse about said part, and finally how it would look to go and move over to Fusion 360 and make those edits as well. So I'm just going to share my screen quickly. 2 seconds. Okay, so we're starting on the Flows interface. This is where either internal or external clients can place orders for parts to be printed. So as you can see, you've got your list of orders here. To place an order, it's really simple. You just click Add Order and fill out a few details. Just for the sake of time, I've already placed an order. So just going into here, you'll see what that view kind of looks like. So this is your order summary. You can see here that you have an initial quote for that part being printed, as well as down here, you'll be able to see what we call line items. So at the moment, there's only one line item placed in this order, but it's by no means limited to one item at a time. The part in question that we're talking about is just this really simple spacer part you can see here. But obviously, this can be any 3D model. All you need to do is upload an STL file over here, and you'll be able to upload your model onto the workspace. So one thing that every order needs is, as well as a few basic details, is also a production workflow. So these are going to be the steps that are carried out to see this part from order placement all the way to delivery to end client, or whatever the work steps might be. So if you look here, you can see we've got this production workflow SLM 500. If you do want to edit a workflow at any stage, I'll just briefly show you what that looks like. So these are all custom fields that you can swap, interchange, add into the workflow really easily just by clicking the add button. And if you want to change the orders as well, you can move them around so that they chronologically make sense. And if you just save that, the other thing that you can do with orders is you can add kind of guidelines as well, custom guidelines. So if I just show you an example here, let's go for the deep powder station. You can add a step that might say, weigh the part or something like that. And if you want, it can be a number name a number value that's required. So maybe it has to be within 1% of the calculated weight, and give it a threshold as well. So that these are kind of tribal knowledge steps that you can add to your workflows. And you can even add a step that says, if it doesn't fall between a certain value, then we can send it to non-conformance or something like that to make sure that all failures are accounted for. So that is the workflow that's attached to each line item. Now, once this order is placed, let's imagine that in this scenario, you're going to want to have some kind of discourse, which is where the conversation would be taken over to Threads, which is our engineering collaboration software. So you'll see here under any order, you have a message box here, but you can also click this button and it will create a thread for you. So for any of you that don't know what Threads is, it's basically a thread is a place where you're trying to accomplish some kind of goal. You have conversation, but it's got quite a few features that lend itself to engineers. So this is an example of a thread that's been created for this spacer order, And as you're talking along with your colleagues, what you might want to do is add your teammates as contributors. If it's an external client, you can just add them by email and they'll be able to sign up for Threads pretty easily. Once that's done, I've uploaded a CAD model and some really basic data about the spacer part. So any shared CAD files in this file section can just be opened up here. This is the part in question. And let's say, you might be having a conversation, and as you're speaking with your colleagues, what's really important about Threads is that you track every engineering decision as it happens, so that you can retrospectively go and revisit conversations and understand why certain design decisions were made. So, as you're going along, someone might say this needs to be printed by Friday, and you want to create an event out of that. Great. Events are basically just any meaningful moment that happens along the timeline of an engineering project. So it doesn't necessarily have to be actions. It can be questions, or if there was an issue or something got resolved. It's really easy to track those, and you can do it manually like I just showed you. But we also have an AI assistant that will read comments as they're being messaged, and basically suggest event creation as well. So this is suggested an action to print materials by Friday. I can go ahead and accept that, and I can assign that to me as well, and it will be pushed to my home dashboard on Threads. So the other thing that, as we're having discourse, maybe you notice that you might want to know a certain measurement about the spacer part. So for example, we have this Threads bot kind of assistant as well, that uses AI. So if you want to say something like, what is the thickness of the spacer, you can go ahead and ask it you can ask it empirical questions where it will go and give you probably a simple answer, because I shared a data sheet on this workspace. But Threads bot can also be a bit more complicated, and you can go and ask it slightly more subjective questions, like what are the biggest risks concerned with this spacer order, or something like that. So it's giving you an answer here. The thickness of the spacer is 3 millimeters. You might need it to be slightly thicker or make an adjustment, and it's really easy to do that on this environment here. So you might want to leave a comment and say, hey, the thickness needs to be increased to 5 millimeters, something like that. And any conversation that you have here will also be reflected in the conversation over here. So again, the AI assistant will be reading all of those messages as well, and doing that event suggestion creation as well. So you need to edit your part now. In reality, this conversation will probably be a bit more extensive and complicated, but let's just keep it simple for now. You need to increase the model, right? So you can go back to the order over here, and if you see in your in the line item, you have a button over here that's the Fusion 360 integration. So if you click into that, I'll just open up Autodesk, and it will take you into this Autodesk environment. So we sell this as a package deal as well. So the Autodesk integration, should you choose to have it, will be included as a whole package with all of the other the rest of the software suite that we have. So you've got your part here, and I won't walk you through how CAD works. I'm sure most of you will know, but let's say you then want to make your edits in this Autodesk space. That's great. All you have to do is once those edits have been made, is click Save over here. And let's just say I did increase the thickness by a couple of millimeters, and that will be able to reflect in this version history tab over here. So you can see I've got 3 versions here. This is my current version, but if I do want to switch it to any of those other iterations, it's really easy to do that. And you can just click Save, and that model will be updated, and the adjustments will be made to the quote and things like that as well. Once the order is logged and ordered, you can track your machine queues or your production Gantt over in this tab over here. So you can see these are your printers and these are your post-processing steps as well, which gives us a quite neat overview of the timeline of your facility or what's actually happening on the shop floor. You can also, if you want a slightly different view, go to a production Gantt, and that will just show you what the actual steps that are being that are running at whatever given time, which is cool. So that's what the interface looks like between Threads, Flows, and Fusion 360. And you know, in an ideal world, I hope that there would be some kind of use case for this that makes logical sense, so that you know it's easy to go and make edits to those models should you need to. So that's mainly what I wanted to showcase today. Are we? Oh, stop sharing. Did anyone have any questions? Okay, cool. Well, this video is going to be up on our website, so I hope anyone watching found it helpful, and I'll end it there.